If that company is raided by police, and police do a lot of raiding and checking on these language centres, and they find that you're working illegally, essentially you can be blacklisted and asked to leave the country. Hello and welcome to another Vietnam Teaching Jobs video. I am Ray. I am in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. I've been here for 12 years and I am an English teacher. So today we're going to talk about the 7 warning signs that you are being scammed as a new teacher coming to Vietnam. Whilst I'm really passionate about sharing the information that Vietnam is a fantastic place to visit and a fantastic place to live and a fantastic place to teach if you are into teaching English, there are some bad people in every country and there are some things that can go wrong which can cost you a lot of money. Here are some things that I've seen and some things I've even experienced myself in my more than 1 decade living here in Vietnam. Number one is probably the biggest one. It hasn't happened to me, but it did happen to a friend of mine. That is the upfront money scam. Now, it's very basic. This is the whole bottom line of this scam, okay? The fact is that no genuine recruiter will ask you for any money or any payment for anything before you start working, okay? You've got to understand that. There is no such thing as pay for something in order to get a job here in Vietnam. So if anyone asks you for money for any reason, whether it be an airplane ticket, a visa, etc., 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 the answer is no. It's a scam, okay? I'll give you a quick story. A friend of mine who was living here a few years ago in Vietnam, he was a teacher in Vietnam, and he was considering moving to China. Found a recruiter online through Facebook or LinkedIn or some online platform. He went through an interview process, did an online interview via one of the social media platforms. Everything looked fantastic. They sent off a questionnaire, they sent off a contract, and then at the very end, they said, oh, by the way, you need to pay for your own plane flight to China, but we'll reimburse you when you get there. And he almost sent the money and he went, well, that doesn't sound right. And he just said, well, how about you pay for the flight now? And they went, no, you have to pay for the flight. And in the end, we did our research and guess what? It was a scam. The idea was that they made the teacher look like and feel like they were getting a job in China. Then at the very last moment, after the contract had been signed, the fake contract, they asked for upfront payment for the airplane ticket, which would probably lead to a upfront payment for visa, maybe even accommodation, and that would be all reimbursed in their first salary payment. It's not true. It doesn't happen. So if you are asked for money by any recruiter or employer as a teacher in Vietnam, say no. Do not proceed with the job. Number 2 on our list of the top 7 scams for teachers in Vietnam is the impersonating a major company scam. Essentially what happens is this is not only Vietnamese scammers, and I must say there actually are very low numbers of Vietnamese scammers. Most of the scamming that occurs either occurs in Cambodia, in Laos, or out of the subcontinent of places like Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka and the like. As well as some European countries, but most of them are centered around here because of the language. What happens with this is that people will set up web pages, not web pages, but like Facebook profiles or the like, and they will claim to be a major company. Now, some of the major companies here in Vietnam are companies like ILA, VUS, Apollo are just 3 of many. To give you an idea of the size of these companies, let's look at ILA as an example. ILA have over 70 language centres across the country, 70. And they employ an estimated somewhere around probably 2,500. The estimation is 2,000 to 3,000 employees in total, of which the majority of those are foreigners working as English language teachers. When you are approached or you approach these big companies for work, one of the red flags is you look at the email address. The scammers will always have an email address at Gmail, at Hotmail, at something, but it's not at ila.vn. The big companies, and you think about it, right? Every big company that you've worked for will have their own domain. If you work for, I don't know, if you work for Nike, right, it'll be, my name at nike.com. And you can check any major company around the world and they're all the same. All of a sudden you are offered a job with, ILA or Apollo or VUS or something like that. And the email address is recruitment.vus@gmail.com. Big red flag. So my advice to you is that if you have not gone through the right channels, being that you are going through a channel that you are not absolutely 100% sure is legitimate, do your checks and balances before you proceed with your application. Go to the company's website, send them an email, say, is this email legitimate? Is this person legitimate? Ask the person, where are they based? What's their phone number, etc., and check it through the company's website. You can easily find the company's website by doing a simple Google search, and every major company will have a very simple website. For example, ila.edu.vn. And of course, you also use the major websites that are trusted in the community. Vietnam Teaching Jobs is one such website that all the jobs offered on Vietnam Teaching Jobs are 100% legitimate. So if you go through a portal like Vietnam Teaching Jobs, you can be assured that those scammers are not able to get to you and take your money. Number 3 on our list of 7 red flags to think about before you accept the job in Vietnam is the immediate offer. Demand is much higher than supply here in Vietnam for foreign teachers, no doubt. But there are rules and regulations that must be followed for teachers, and you will find that all legitimate companies will go through those processes before they give you an offer. It's quite simple. What sits behind it is both legislation and policy within these big companies that ensure that you are legitimate, legal, and skilled to do the job. And the big companies have a legal responsibility to be able to prove to the government that you are a fit and worthy person of being able to teach people English here in Vietnam. So if you get an instant offer, you send off an email or an instant message. They might ask for your CV. You send the CV, and within 24 hours they say, "Yep, no worries, you've got a job." It's a red flag. And beyond that, you will find there will be things like money scammers, and the big one is identity theft. What they usually do is after they give you the offer, they'll say, "Okay, we also need to see your driver's license, your passport, your degrees, your etc." And so you take copies of all those personal documents and you send them to this unknown person who's offered you a contract. And it's probably some scammer in Bangladesh or somewhere who then uses that official information to be able to create a fake profile of you and use you to scam other people. So, if it's too good to be true and it's too quick and there's no checks and balances, just do not proceed with the job offer. Just don't proceed. That's it. You may think, oh my God, I'm missing out on a great opportunity. But if it's a real company, they will follow the law, and instant offers are not part of following the law. Number 4 on our list, I've kind of mentioned it already, but it's very specifically beyond an early offer. It is asking for your passport to be scanned and sent. Now, you will find them on all platforms. On all social media platforms, I should say. You'll find them on LinkedIn, you'll find them on Reddit, you'll find them on Facebook, Instagram, you name it. They will have a job offer, and even in the actual advertisement for the job, they will say, email your scanned passport and documents to this address. And you do that, and then you just lose your identity. With a copy of the passport, they could potentially open bank accounts, access your money in your local bank in your home country. They could do a whole wide range of things. For example, here in Vietnam, as a long-time resident with all the legal documentation, I cannot access my bank account without showing my passport. If I give somebody else that passport, a copy of that passport, that then enables them to be able to potentially access my bank account. And I have had my bank account scanned once here in Vietnam. So it's not a very nice thing. So if someone's asking for personal documents in the job advertisement or on the first contact with them, stop. It's a scam. Okay. Again, the big companies like ILA and VUS and Apollo and Wall Street English and the like, they will not ask for that information until you're in a face-to-face interview and you sign the contract. It's that easy. So please do not hand over your passport, a copy of your passport, to anybody who claims to have a job here in Vietnam. Number 5 on the list of things that we are certainly going to be very wary of are the advertisements that say big money, no experience necessary. The main issue here in Vietnam is the possession of a degree and also some form of English learning certification, whether that be CELTA, TEFL, TESOL, etc., etc. If you go through an advertising process and you find a job here in Vietnam and they offer you, good money, they offer you $25, $30, $35, $40 an hour, and they say, oh no, don't worry about it, you don't need a degree or you don't need your TESOL certificate, it is a red flag. There are 2 options here. Either one, we go back to what we've already spoken about. They are either identity theft or they're trying to steal money from you. Or number 2, they are a company that operates in Vietnam, but they are operating illegally. And all they do is they just get people in to do the work, and they either don't pay them after their first couple of months, so they'll say, you have a probationary period. They might say, your probationary period is 50% salary, and then we'll pay you the full salary. And so they pay you 50% salary for a couple of months, and then they say, we don't want you anymore, and they get rid of you. Or even worse, they'll put you on and they'll say, look, we can't pay you the first month because the paperwork's not up, and whatever. They give you an excuse and they hold you off for 2 or 3 months without paying you. And then after they've got their value out of you, they just say, look, go away, we're not going to pay you. And you are out of a job. You're in a foreign country with no money and basically no employment prospects because you don't have your English certification, you don't have your degree, and you're stuck, So if they offer you something that's ridiculous, it seems too good to be true, it definitely is too good to be true here in Vietnam. Number 6 in the red flags of scams for teachers in Vietnam is pressure to get you to use unofficial applications for communication. Most pointed are things like Telegram and the like. There are also many other equivalent platforms that crypto scammers and the whole lot, they use them because they're unmonitored and they think they're untraceable. So what will happen is you will make contact about a job. Let's say you do it through LinkedIn, and they'll very quickly say, look, we don't want to talk on LinkedIn. Can you please contact us through Telegram, Discourse or whatever? And they want to get you off the platform they're using and into another platform where they can scrape your information. Look, I'm not overly technical, but my understanding is that there are some applications where they can, they can send you links that are viruses, put worms into your computer or your phone and steal your information, your banking information. And the whole purpose of it is to basically carry you along enough to get all your personal information so they can access your bank account and take your money. So if you are asked by anybody at any point to go from the platform that you're communicating on and move to a platform like Discourse or Telegram or one that is not basically if you have to go off that platform for any reason other than going to email, you should consider that as a major red flag and cease the communication immediately, because there's no doubt that at the end of the day, you will be the loser. And our last big red flag on the 7 red flags of teachers in Vietnam is vague or non-existent contracts. I have to give you the background of how this works. So today we've been highlighting those very, very big companies that operate well within the laws of Vietnam. Additionally, we have a number of international schools that operate well within the law of Vietnam, and we have some smaller companies that also work very well within the law of Vietnam. I personally work with one of those smaller companies. They operate out of Ho Chi Minh City. They have about 100 employees, and they work very well. But there are it's mostly language centres that do it. They operate just outside of the law. And so what they will do, and they will get you in and they will say, look, we want you to work for us. It's usually part-time. I want you to do 2 hours here and 4 hours here, or, 2 days a week or whatever. And a contract never appears, a TRC never appears, a work permit never appears. And look, you might get paid, but they operate outside of the law. Now, this can be very harmful for you as a foreigner living in Vietnam, because if that company is raided by police, and police do a lot of raiding and checking on these language centres, and they find that you're working illegally, essentially you can be blacklisted and asked to leave the country. So for that little bit of money that you might pull in, whether it be an extra bit of work, or if you are below the accepted level of education standards, and you found a backdoor way into getting some work in Vietnam by working for one of these companies, it will cost you in the long run. Only work where there is a legitimate legal contract that has been ratified under Vietnamese law. That's my only advice. So guys, they are the 7 red flags that you should be concerned with if you are looking to come and teach here in beautiful Vietnam. I've got one conclusion for you. The best way to avoid getting caught up with any of these scams is to use the services of a trusted leader in the industry like Vietnam Teaching Jobs. They are a company that are skilled in only delivering legitimate, registered and legal teaching jobs to foreigners all over the world who wish to come to Vietnam and work as an English teacher in this country. So make sure that you don't take the easy way, you don't take the short way, you don't take the backdoor way, and you do it properly and use the portal of Vietnam Teaching Jobs as one of your key ways in finding your first job as an English teacher in Vietnam. I'm Ray for Vietnam Teaching Jobs. I'm an Aussie in Vietnam. Check me out on my YouTube channel, An Aussie in Vietnam, for a lot more about the wonderful things of this country has to offer. And stay tuned to Vietnam Teaching Jobs, because it is the place to be if you are looking for a job in Vietnam. I've got my job through them, so you can too. See you next time, guys. Bye-bye.